Welcome everybody to the February 1st meeting of the Bowmanville Rotary Club. Fred, you have our invocation this morning.
I certainly do. Thank you, Father, for the gift of Rotary and each other. Bless this food as which will nourish our bodies and our minds. May we be ever mindful of those in need. Help us provide the food to the hungry, to heal the wounds of the hated with our love, and comfort those in sorrow. Bring peace to those living in areas of unrest. Amen.
Thank you. Just before Lianna, I want to welcome Martin, who is our speaker this morning. So he will be more formally introduced in just a minute. Lianna, you're going to do our land acknowledgement this morning for us, please.
Yep. We are situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas and Chippewas of the Anishinaabe, known today as the Williams Treaties First Nations. Our existence on these lands acknowledges their resilience and their long-standing contributions to our area. We're thankful to be welcomed on these lands in friendship. Most importantly, we remember the history of these lands has been tainted by poor treatment with the First Nations who call them home. This history is something we are all affected by, as we are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, then it does not have to define our future.
Excellent, thank you. Pauline, go ahead. You're muted.
You sounded awfully apprehensive there. Could that be because you have a celebration, Amy? Our president, Amy, is having a birthday this week. Happy birthday, Amy.
Birthday.
And we also have an anniversary. Joe and Juanita, I hope you're ready to celebrate on Thursday. Happy anniversary. And there are no other celebrations.
Oh, was it your anniversary on Thursday too? How many years?
31 years.
Oh, I got a few. All right. So, Gail.
Yes.
You're going to introduce our speaker for us.
Yes, I am. It's my pleasure to introduce Detective Martin Franssen, Regional Police Service. Martin is going to speak to us about frauds and telephone scams, and I think we've all had one of those happen to us at one time or attempt. I'm very interested in hearing this, but as well as being a detective with the police department, Martin is also a member of the Oshawa Rotary Club. So over to you, Martin.
Awesome, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sure.
Hopefully, and the video is turned on. And Joe was asking me to turn it on a little earlier, but I was still eating my bagels, so I didn't want to put you through that. Good morning to everybody. Great seeing these faces. Technology, boy, what would we have done without it with this whole COVID pandemic thing? It's not as nice as sitting in the room, though, smiling at faces and actually being interactive, but I'll do the best I can. And thank you very much for inviting me today. Truly honored to be able to talk to you folks. This wonderful world of fraud, it would be so nice as could go away, but it won't. There are some that believe there's another profession that's the oldest. I would suggest to you that fraud probably is the oldest profession, because as long as there's been currency, there's been somebody out there trying to take it away from you through devious means. The unfortunate thing that's happened with the world of fraud is it's not getting better, it's getting much worse. And when I say worse, just to give you an idea, the recent statistics that only came out on Friday out of the Canadian Fraud Center. And if you're not familiar with who they are, it's a governmental organization that's run by the RCMP. In Ontario, it's collaboratively operated with the OPP. They strictly acquire statistics. And their statistics are truly only based on people reporting. and they report back to the federal government to try to give a bit of a footprint on how things going in the way of fraud. But they have the ability to also take information that's given to them, share it across the country to see trends. They have the ability to share it internationally through the RCMP, which is kind of good. So what they've said, which is I find truly scary, up until November of 2020, they've had reportings of 46,604 victims across Canada for a loss of $231 million. Now, that's a lot of money. But when you consider that we believe only about 5% of victims of fraud will ever report it, and it's particularly to the Canadian Fraud Center, the potential for that figure to be substantially higher is huge. But to give you a comparison, that was January to November 2021. The overall 12-month figure for 2020 was $123 million less. So it almost doubled in 2021. So I don't know who is, sitting on a comfortable wallet that you can obviously, just expend your money easily. I know of nobody that likes to do that, but yet we're seeing it on a daily basis where they are literally losing thousands and thousands of dollars. Just before Christmas, and it's continuing to be a trend, is that the scam commonly referred to as the grandparent scam. If anybody's familiar with that, I'll give it to you really quickly, is they tend to get a hold of you in the ungodly hours of 2, 3 a.m. kind of thing in the morning when you're, going through those sleep cycles. The phone rings. Somebody on the opposite end is hard to hear, muted. And they will lead you to believe that they are a grandchild, usually the grandson, that they have been somehow involved in some emergency situation. It tends to be a car accident. It tends to be that they were under the influence of alcohol and or drug, that they've been arrested, that they're out the hospital, and that they have to have bail. And then there's a lawyer element to it and everything else. What happens is, because the individuals answering the phone can only hear that, often a soft voice, if you would, they offer information. And then once the caller has that information, they then role play out. Like, hi, Johnny, is that you? And then, yeah, Grandma, it's me. I'm sorry you can't make up my boy. I'm in the hospital right now. I got all this stuff attached to me, etc. That scam has been going on for years. It's scary enough on its own, because it is taking you emotionally down a path. And then, of course, that's followed up with taking your money, which is absolutely disgusting. But what they're actually doing now, in the past, where they would convince you to send money through such things as Western Union, gift cards, they're actually getting people to come to your door. And we find that extremely scary. We literally having major problems with it. One elderly gentleman here in Durham was convinced to put the money in a bag and then hang it from a tree in his front yard, and they would come by and they'd take it out of the tree. And they did that multiple times. That was back in early fall. But right around Christmas time and right through January, they're actually showing right up to your door and taking the package that is put together. And when I say the package, folks, the average is $9,000. It usually is a multiple run on you. So if they got you the first time for $9,000, they will run you more often. You now become, unfortunately, a target for them. You're caught in this scam, and they make up all sorts of excuses. And we've had people lose upwards of $100,000 through this scam in the last few months. So it's very, very scary. There's a few ways to solve this problem, if you would. Education, spreading the word, listening to me, you poor souls, on a Tuesday morning so early in the morning without having your coffee yet. But then taking that word and spreading it to everybody you can think of. I've often heard, when I used to do the in-person talks, of people say, well, that they'd call, I knew that they wasn't them. because of caller ID, I didn't recognize the number, but I want to have fun with them. And I will suggest to you folks that if you want to have fun, go find a baseball and take your dog for a walk and have some fun with them. These folks, this is all they do in life, and they're very, very good at it. Simple matter of answering your telephone. You give them 4 pieces of information, and everybody always says, well, I have no intention of giving them anything, but you do. Anybody got an idea what those 4 items of information could be? Gail, you're on mute there, madam. I know you're talking. No? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
you would tell them whether you're male or female. You
definitely
would tell them that you are home. You would tell them that your phone number is operational. And I don't know what the 4th one would be.
Your age demographic comes through your voice. Okay. And if you're not sure about that, just call your grandchildren when we're done here. Okay. Gail gets the star for the day. If the club has a star by any chance, a sticky star, please make sure that that's passed on to when you actually get into the opportunity to be in person. I do thank you, Gail. You're definitely right on there. So right off the bat, the fact that the telephone number has a person attached to it, it's not a fax machine, it's an active telephone number. The second thing, of course, the time of day when they can get you, male versus female, and then ultimately your age. And yet you sat there and said, I don't intend to give them anything. I'm just going to have some fun with them. Well, not the way to go, because you've now given them an avenue. You've opened the door and you've basically invited them into your life without realizing that's exactly what you've done. And then they're going to do every opportunity, or take advantage of every opportunity to take you down a garden path. And if it's to put fear, God forbid, into you, that one of your family members in dire need, troublesome, very troublesome. So there's a couple of things at that point in time I would suggest to you. When you were younger, shall we say, or your children were younger, did you have a family code, passphrase, some sort of word that you said that, hey, little Johnny, if you ever, somebody comes up to you and says, the dad's looking for you, if they don't give you this word, scream like the bejesus and run away. We have those with the little ones, but we lose that as we get older because we sit, they go, hey, everybody's safe. Not realizing that as a family, as an individual in that family, you could be the target. So I'll suggest to you, folks, if you don't have a passphrase, get one with your family. So God forbid you get one of these calls at ungodly hours. So you get someone suggesting that one of your family members is in trouble. Demand to hear that passphrase, or that code, whatever it is, apples, pears, peaches, plums, whatever it is. Grab something that's unique to your family and keep it amongst your family. It is good for the 5-year-old. It's equally good for the 80-year-old and everybody in between. It's not if you share it, of course. It should be a family thing, and it should be tight to your family. But it helps because it gives you that degree of assurance. Because again, somebody calling you, telling you that your loved one is in dire straits and in need, an emergency situation, the heart takes over. The head seems to go in the back, sits in the back seat, and you're driven by emotion versus logic. So try to kick that back in. Another way to help you protect you from that and these other scams that are going on, I constantly get them. I always love getting them on my work phone. But of course, I don't answer them, generally speaking. Is even with call display, if you don't know, they spoof telephone numbers, i.e. they will fake a number, easily done. There's an app, believe it or not, you can put on your own cell phone to do that, to fake out your number. They were at the latter part of last year, they would often, when they would call the first person, so they would call Gail, Gail would answer. They then use that telephone number to call John. And when John sees Gail's number, he's thinking, oh, that's cool. And then finds out, of course, it's not Gail at all. It's spoof. They just spoofed the number. Or the missed call is coming from Gail because John was smart enough not to answer the phone. He was patient and he waited. So what I suggest to you is if you're not doing this, then think about it. Answering machines. They haven't gone by the way of the dodo bird. It's close, but they're still out there. Of course, voicemail is available through all cell phones. But that answering machine, that voicemail, acts as a door. And what it does is it prevents direct contact between you and them. And as long as there is that break, just like the front door of your house, until you invite them in beyond that, they can't make contact. If they can't make contact with you, they can't defraud you. If you're doing a voicemail message, generic messages are always best. I know some of them sound quite mechanical, but hey, that's okay too. No, ladies, I would always suggest never to use your own voice. John's calling up Gail and he hears a man's voice on there. It sounds familiar. It's like Fred. Maybe the first time he's going to get a joke out of it. But after that, everybody realizes that, yeah, Gail's answering to his Fred's voice. It's fine. But again, you don't know why they're calling. And if you've indicated to them, hi, this is Gail, you've now given them a few bits of information that may not be good. Again, you don't know why. The other thing I often hear people do is you've just called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I may not have known I called 1, 2, 3. I'm just cold dialing. But you just told me, again, all those things before. Female's voice, active telephone number, and you just confirmed a relationship between that number and that person. So don't be doing that. I always suggest a generic answering. And again, it's not I'm not available, it's we are not available. Okay, whether or not you're single or otherwise, for the purposes of your answering a message, you are now in a relationship. You are a we, you're a family. Use that, again, generic terminology. And if you're not certain or you're uncomfortable creating that voice message, as I said, just use the generic one that comes with the instrument, the answering machine or the voicemail. They're both there. So I can talk longer if you want. I wasn't sure exactly how much time you want, but you can always, or are there any questions? Maybe that's what I should do.
Go back to, are there, oh, yeah, Roy, I see you.
Question for Martin. I received 4 calls yesterday. The number started with a V and then it was 13 digits. What's that coming from, or where's that coming from?
That's coming through a computer.
That's all.
Yeah, that's strictly coming through a computer. So if you are seeing that, it's called VoIP, voice over internet protocol. Avoid that. You might have the odd young person nowadays going through a VoIP situation. It never really took off. You and I can actually get a telephone that is plugged in the wall that is tied to your internet, and it would then show up as a VoIP. But what it would show up in the back, if you had a legitimate VoIP telephone, your number would show up just like everybody else. But yeah, that's a spoof. Those are spoof calls. So, and those ones you definitely don't. Your best friend, if you would, then becomes the block component of your phone. Because what you should do immediately then after the call's completed, let it ring itself out. Take it, look at most telephones, if you go to the I component for information against the caller, and in a simple Apple, if you scroll to the bottom, it just touch it under block, and you're not going to be bothered by that number again. But yeah, that's voice over internet protocol.
Thank you.
Gail, I saw you, Gail.
Yeah, I had a couple of things. I get these calls all the time, and sometimes I won't play. But one of the things I really appreciate, I went into Walmart in December to buy something called a Steam card. I had no idea what it was. My grandson had asked for it, and I really appreciated the young clerk saying to me, "Can I ask you why you want this?" I said, "Well, my grandson asked me for one for Christmas, and so I don't know what it is. It's something to do with computer games." And he said to me, "There's a scam going on where they're calling older people and saying that they'll get free Amazon cards if they send these Steam cards." So I really appreciated that he flagged it. In my case, it was legitimate. And then the very next day, I went to my bank to withdraw $7,000, and I really appreciated that the clerk said to me, "Can I ask you why you're taking it out?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm taking it out because of blah blah blah." I actually was, it was a legitimate reason, but I appreciated that my bank was concerned enough to make sure that I wasn't being scammed, because I have had older relatives who were scammed with the grandparent scam.
That's awesome. Great. I'm glad to hear that. I hope you also went back to those two organizations and let their management know that you appreciate it, because it often, and especially in the banking world, it's a fine line between privacy and corporate image, and they're always afraid, that of crossing that line. So in 2015, PIPEDA, which is the Federal Privacy Information Act, it was amended to permit them to do exactly what they did with you, Gail. And they are trying.
I congratulated the individuals, and I did contact their management.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, because they need to hear that. They need to hear that it's effective, because corporate image is what a lot of them are worried about. At the end of the day, it's your money. They cannot deny giving you your money, but they one of the reasons they will do that is that there's a law related to money laundering. And if they're at all aware that you may be supporting a scam, they can be penalized, believe it or not, and through money laundering rules. So they do have a corporate element to worry about as well. But it's absolutely amazing how some of these organizations are stepping up. But alternatively, we're getting also people standing in line at different places, your drugstores, whatever, and they're literally buying thousands of dollars of gift cards, and nobody's challenging them, which is most unfortunate, because at the end of the day, who needs $1,000 gift card, or multiple thousands of dollar gift cards? If you're not familiar with how that works, the moment that the card number is given up and the PIN, the personal identification number on the back of the card is given up, your money is just gone. It's not retrievable. It's gone. So companies are getting a little better at it. If you're in line and you happen to see it going on, depending on the situation, maybe, tapping the person in front of you, going, hey, just to let you know, I read the other day, or I heard in the news, there was a lot of scams going on out there. Sometimes that's all it takes, just for a person to kind of think twice, and you could be saving them literally thousands and thousands of dollars. We had a woman recently that sold a house, was temporarily living in a hotel, and she got hooked on the scam, and she mailed out over $60,000 through courier, and passed $40,000 on 3 separate occasions through the window of a complete stranger's car right on Highway 2 downtown Oshawa on 3 separate occasions. And they're now cleaned out. Profits of the home are gone. So, yeah, sometimes it's that simple interaction with someone saying, hey, I heard this, might just be enough to stop them. But I'm glad those companies did that.
Phil, I see you're next. You're muted though.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, so I have a question that's kind of twofold. I work very heavily in the VoIP industry, and I track down a lot of this kind of stuff and do some forensic analysis on it. And I had some questions in relation to one, the good old common CRA scam that everybody gets, it does really pull a lot of people in. But so my scenario, I love to play with these guys as well, and just for different purposes. But for me, I got a call one day, and it was somebody stating that they were from the CRA. This was about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. So immediately, your guard comes up. And, stating that, he has a bunch of questions for me, of course. And so I start, kind of asking my own questions, right? I'm asking him where his office is. I'm asking him what the phone number is, and getting as many particular details as I can out of the person. And then, some legitimate type answers are coming back. And so I'm starting to, and this gentleman had a Nigerian accent, which as well, kind of put me on guard. So as I progressed in the conversation, I decided to ask him exactly the reason he was calling. And he had said that he was calling to find out why I amended my 2011 T4. And so I had amended my 2011 T4. So I asked for a phone number to call back, and I called it back, and it was a CRA agent. So my question is, my first question, how is the government responding to this kind of thing when they say the CRA doesn't call you on the phone at night, when they do call you on the phone at night? And how does that handled? I ended up getting audited, by the way, so it was a serious call.
Yeah. And the CRA will respond by telling you that, yes, we will call now and then. They've actually been known to call on Saturdays. So, yeah, Phil, you're completely right. The first indicator, why, you would think they would be office hours. They're calling you at night to get a hold of you. The CRA, any agent that I've talked to in the CRA says we always start with a registered letter, communications with you, and then we follow it up with a telephone call. Obviously, that didn't occur in this particular case.
Not at all.
Interesting, to say the least. And when it comes to the government doing anything about fraud, I personally call it the three monkey syndrome: hear no evil, see no evil, therefore there is no evil. They absolutely refuse to accept the fact that fraud is off the rails right now. These stats I just gave you will be probably just totally ignored.
Wonderful.
They do not accept the fact. The courts do not accept it. We put a lot of efforts to put somebody before the court. Recently, if you read about the cancer case where the young, they ripped off the two elderly women and other churchgoers under the ruse, many ruses, of that little girl having cancer. I got a 2-year sentence on that.
Oh, wow.
Just short of $1 million.
Yeah, that's great.
If this was in the USA, they'd get 20 years, and they'd be housed right next to Bubba, who's in there for life looking for a friend.
Yeah.
On my other case called Banshee with Ethel, that you can read about in the paper, the primary player there got 6.5 years in 2019, and he is in a halfway house as of August of last summer. When I do the math, no matter how I look at it, I can't get 6 fingers out of that. I come up with 1 finger and a little bit. I won't tell you which one. But anyway, at the end of the day, they just don't seem to consider there's any victimization involved in this, unfortunately, Phil. So part of the answer there is the government calling you. Did they challenge you at any point and ask you for 3 digits of your SIN?
Nope, not at all. That's why I was really on guard with him. And I mean, it did hit all the markers that it was a fraud call. And I put this guy right through the ringer, like in terms of like really grilling him and like, why would I ever believe you? And this and that and the other thing. And then it just got so far where it was, oh, this could possibly be legit. It despite everything I've ever been told about the CRA calling. It was it hit all the markers. It was just so strange.
That would be totally strange, because that I am told, again, their policy is to verify their identity through, or part of their awareness is not to ask for your social insurance number, but to give you 3 digits of one of the 3 groupings. to verify. They will never ask you for all 9, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like they're breaking everything they tell me that they do to protect.
Yeah, it's very strange. My other question. So in the U.S., I have numerous clients, and at one point I got a call from one of them asking me to track down something in their phone system because they had received a $30,000 long distance bill that there's no way they had spent. So I had found a vulnerability in their system and traced back. Fortunately, the calls were active at the time, and through decoding all of their DTMF tones, I could tell where the calls were coming from. And there's somebody who had bounced off of 10 different PBXs who had similar vulnerabilities, and traced the call to the source all the way back to Google Talk, which is another VoIP service. But the destination of the call was to MCI WorldCom in the US, where the number would be dropped off into a pay per minute service, or like a long distance service that would bill the end user, but the fraudster would receive commissions from MCI on this. And of course, I reported this to the fraud department. I never received any phone call back from them. No detail, no information. This ended up going to the courts in the US. But what's being done in terms of corporate accountability for fraud in that regard? Because MCI were receiving revenue off of this fraudster. So although they're not directly culpable, I think that they absolutely share responsibility, because after the fraud was committed, and I left this fraud up and running for a while so that we could see exactly what was going on with it, that they never took any action whatsoever because they were making money. So what's the corporate accountability side of that look like?
In Canada, unfortunately, not very strong.
No?
In the US, very strong. A few years going back to 2016, I believe it was, the US, they actually sued oh God, I just lost their name. The money guys.
Western Union?
Western Union. Thank you. I don't know why I had a hard time with that. Western Union actually got sued by the US government, and they lost. It was in the hundreds of millions of dollars that they were ordered to pay back to victims of fraud, because they knowingly were supporting the individuals perpetrating the frauds, because often the signs are there. It included Canadians, by the way, in that ruling, and we were able to get money back. But unfortunately, when it comes to, again, Canada, we have to rely on the Americans to take the initiative. They're taking the initiative on the Western Union issue. They're taking issues on other companies and trying to hold them accountable. They're even taking on some big companies. Currently, they're the ones taking on the initiatives related to cryptocurrency and the whole world of regulating cryptocurrency and accountability through crypto. We in Canada, I'm sorry to say, it's most unfortunate, but we again go back to what I call the 3 monkeys. And it's not until the true impact of victimization is realized, and that it is truly a very, very effective scam to make lots of money. All the organizations out there that you would think of traditional street gangs, for example, they're all involved in fraud nowadays, because it's so much easier to use a bunch of stolen credit card numbers and get caught with those and get nothing, versus a pound of coke. So fraud is rampant. I'm afraid to say it's going to get worse. The government does not want to hear about it. The courts don't want to hear about it, which is most unfortunate. And that's why Canada is one of the biggest countries in the world that is A, victimized, and B, the home of fraudsters.
Excellent.
Yeah, there's a lot of fraud that actually happens out of Canada.
Just one more thing for everybody on this call. Never, ever once will Microsoft ever call you and tell you that you have a problem on your computer, just so you know.
Yes, a good one there, Phil. Thank you. Definitely. Bill Gates, as I always joke about, he's engaged in too many other things to worry about your little computer. And if your computer got a virus and crashed. He wins out of it because you go off and buy a new computer. So yeah, he's not going to take the time, nor is his company going to call you personally.
I think we have time for one more. Pauline, I saw your hand up. You've been so patient.
Oh.
Hi, Pauline.
Hi, Martin. I'm actually strangely comforted to know that this is happening to everyone. I live in Wilmot Creek, and this has seemed to have been going on for a couple of years. And I was actually thinking, oh, they're looking at a postal code, because it happens so very often. And a couple of years ago, many of our residents were taken in with it. One of them lost $6,200 through buying credit cards. And he was questioned at the store, but he had already been primed that he would be questioned and was told what answers to say. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this was a chap that was almost 90. He fell for it. So that was $6,200. He was out. So it was about that time I changed the message on my answering machine. And we never answer the phone unless we recognize the number. And the message says that we're not going to answer the phone if we don't recognize a number, because it's usually somebody trying to sell us something or steal from us. And if you're a genuine caller, leave a message and we'll get back to you. And that works really well.
Turned them off, eh? Yeah, you had a few issues in Wilmot Creek to live on. Say hello to Jimmy next time you see him. Christmas, if you don't. Yeah. And again, I can't overstress, folks, the biggest one when it comes to the telephone, you may think that the number is there and you recognize if it's not in your contacts, don't be answering it. Any time loss from an answering machine, you can hear that message being dropped. So if you recognize the voice while they're dropping the message, you can pick up phone up and make contact. If it's on your cell phone, what have you lost? Maybe 2 minutes, but that 2 minutes could be the savior of thousands and thousands of dollars. And always remember that, a lot of people say, well, it was only $1,000 I lost. It's no big deal. I'm embarrassed by it. Report it, please. We may not be able to do anything, especially if the money traveled off shore. Report it to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, because they're the ones feeding the information to the government. And the statistics like the ones I gave you at the beginning, as much as they will try to hide them, they speak volumes. And at the end of the day, $1,000 for you, maybe you can absorb that, but $1,000 for somebody on a fixed income, and it could be a game changer in their entire life. So if you're in a position to try to help out and make that comment, make that suggestion, hey, you know what, whatever, just cause them to breathe for a second and reflect upon what's being fed to them. But the true fraudsters will coach them and say, oh, yeah, please, they're going to claim the police will say this to you and you'll be told this. Here's the response. By the way, you often see them on the cell phone while all this is going on.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Martin, for joining us this morning. My father-in-law got a call once from my son, who was like 12, saying he was in jail. Thankfully, my father-in-law is a jail guard and kind of put him in his place. So.
Awesome. Well done. That one backfired on him.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You're more than welcome to stick on the call if you want for the rest of our program. If you've got places to be, you're a busy guy, I understand. But again, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure. I teach at 9, so I will pull back and get ready for my teaching. So I teach on Tuesdays. So thanks, folks. Right. Stay safe. All the best to you. And watch out. I understand we've got a big storm coming tomorrow, so please be careful.
Okay, so I think we're going to skip over to Know Your Rotarian, because I want to make sure that these guys have enough time, because we all really enjoy this new this part of our program. So Steve and Peter, I don't know who's up first, but take it away.
Oh, well, I guess I'll jump in if that's okay, Steve.
Sounds great.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I mean, everybody knows Steve, and I had the pleasure of getting together with him last week. We got together, had a chat for a cup of coffee, and it was really nice to get to know a little bit more about him. So briefly, Steve, I found he's a very dedicated family man, successful businessman. active community leader. He's lived in Bowmanville pretty much his whole life, ever since he was 2 years old. Steve and his wife, Tori, met in high school and have been together over 30 years now. They are the proud parents of 2 teenagers, with Billy being at Durham College and Vivian is in grade 11. Steve studied political science at Western and got fairly deeply involved in politics after graduation for a short while. And it was during an early O'Toole senior campaign that he developed his keen interest in computers and IT, which then became his career. So his consulting business, which I'll put in a little plug, is NYR Consulting, not your regular consulting. It's grown into quite a successful business over the years. And it's one of the jobs that Steve considers the best he's ever had. And I'm sure that's because, like here in Bowmanville, and especially here at Rotary, he's been able to develop so many good friends, which is exactly what he set out to do when he joined the club back in 2015. One of Steve's largest clients is in Las Vegas and is big in the gaming industry. So in the early days, Steve was spending a lot of time in Las Vegas. Sounds very glamorous, but it's a lot of work. He was spending about 50% of his time. So 2 weeks out of 4, you're away from home. You know, you're putting in a lot of hours, a lot of hard work. And it seems to have paid off for him. His business is doing very well there. And he's made a lot of friends in Vegas, and it's kind of like a second home to him. So during his downtime in Vegas, which he does get sometimes, you can usually find Steve perched on his favorite stool at McMullen's Pub, downing a pint or 2 of Guinness or Magners. Keeps up with his Leafs, the Tottenham Hotspurs, or the Toronto Football Club. He's also planning a trip to England this spring to cheer on his AFC Richmond team, if people know that reference. Here at home, you can usually find him, occasionally, down at 99 King, or what used to be the Village Inn. Steve's favorite Netflix binge is the show Ozark or Vikings. He's also a huge fan of Galaxy Far, Far Away, even naming his 2 family dogs after Star Wars characters. Musically, Steve is a big Bob Marley fan and was even into country music during his university days. And when he can find the time in the nice weather, he's an avid cyclist. And he says that Tori sometimes finds him quite handy with the tools around the house. So he likes to do a lot of handyman repairs around the house and lots of different projects on the go. And Steve has done such a great job as a member of Rotary and as past president. He's been involved in projects like leading the Rib Fest and many, many other projects. And we're just so fortunate to have Steve as a member, and I'm sure everybody can feel the same way as me. I don't know what we would do without him. So that's about it. That's a little bit about Steve.
All right. Well, thank you, Peter. That was very nice, and thank you to everyone for not jumping over Peter's comment that Tori appreciated that I was handy with tools. That could have gone sideways. So, all right.
She can't find you handsome. She can find you handy.
You got it. You got it. So forgive me. I've got a conference call going on in the background here. I'm also going to be listening for my name to jump up, but I really enjoyed this. Before I dive into it, Amy and I know Gord brought this back because this used to be a thing. I think, Don, you originally started up. I really enjoyed getting to know Peter, because one of the things that I think we've all missed during COVID is our social time. And, you know, Peter, you've been a member for 7 months now, maybe longer, and attending meetings for a couple months before that. But I never really had a chance to talk with you, and I really enjoyed talking with you the other night. So I'll tell you all a little bit about Peter. He and his wife Judy live in Newcastle. They are the force, Judy in particular, behind Autism Home Base. That's where Peter and I met, actually. What a fantastic facility and service they're providing to our community. Really lovely. Peter grew up in Ancaster. He's got 5 brothers. His father and his brothers all worked at Procter & Gamble at one point. Peter took a different path. He became a millwright and has spent his career, kind of prior to 1990, traveling around the country as a millwright for hire, or just kind of a lone wolf, as it were. In 1980, he started doing some contractor work for Ontario Hydro, and by 1990, he was full-time with OPG out in the Bruce. And it was in 1999 that he found his way to Clarington when he was transferred to Darlington, where he worked until January of 2018. As I said, Peter's spent a lot of time kind of moving around all different places. He's got a fair amount of wanderlust, and spent some time in Alberta, amongst other parts of the country. He really enjoys his time outside. He loves hiking through all the conservation areas, trails here. One of his favorite hikes, though, ever was hiking around the peak of Blackcomb. Let's see, what else do we have here? He's also a handyman, I dare say probably handier than I. But he loves, I guess that comes out of being a millwright. He loves building things. So during his professional time, he is a builder of machines and other things. And at home and at Autism Home Base, he employs those skills to make home more comfortable, and Autism Home Base that much more comfortable. An interesting fact, I didn't mention kids, sorry. He's got 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, plus 2 stepsons, and he has 5 grandchildren. So congratulations on that. That's kind of fantastic golden time of life. An interesting fact here, Peter very nearly ended up hitchhiking to Woodstock. Famous outdoor concert in the 60s, but thought better of it when he realized that, he and his pals had absolutely no money and stood a high chance of just being stuck there. So they decided not to go down that weekend. He's been with his wife, Judy, for 7 years now. Let's see, what else do we have? We talked about our Netflix passions, I guess. Right now, he's busy binging Peaky Blinders and Parenthood. However, his favorite show growing up was Bonanza. Peter's got a real solid interest in doing good in the community. That and our shared interest in growing friendships is why he joined Rotary, and I think is looking forward to more normal times so he can dig right in. But by the sounds of it, he's already a solid contributing member on the committees with which he serves. And great getting to know you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Excellent. These really are fun.
Yeah, it was great. It was great getting together.
Yeah, look forward to normal times when we can actually just all get together. Okay, so let's skip back then to Happy Bucks. Is anybody happy? Oh, Fred.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really happy. I just got some good news from my daughter and son-in-law that they're all put COVID back to bed, which is really heartwarming to hear that. They got caught up in it on New Year's Eve, so they had to do all the the isolation, et cetera, but everybody's good again. On a sadder note, sad is the only word I've got for it. Our friend Wayne Routley is in the hospital, and he's been there about 7 days. They don't know what it is. So they're doing all kinds of testing, et cetera, and they're confident they're going to find something. Whenever it is, they're not sure, and whenever they find it, they're not sure. But he's under good care right now, unable to answer the phone, and so don't bother contacting. That's a little bit out of the question, because there's nobody at the hospital visiting, et cetera, except one person from the family. His daughter is in and out of there on a regular basis. And hopefully everybody just keep me in your thoughts and prayers at this time. And I'll keep you informed as much as Carol wants to right now. Everything's fine though. They've got, things are all lined up, whatever that means. But they're optimistic that he will get better. So okay. That's a little bit of both things, both having to do with illness.
Okay, thanks very much, Fred. And yeah, do keep us posted.
Yes, I will.
Joe?
Yeah, let me just take this off here. Yeah, very quickly. I have a couple of COVID things. I'll give $20 to, I'll send it to you now, and I'll drop it by sometime. My mother, who lives in Strathaven, who I guess I told everybody, she had COVID, as did many people in her unit and in the rest of the floor and in the rest of the residents. Her case was resolved, as have most of them. I don't think they've had a serious case there. And, it's just a shout out to the people at Strathaven who do an incredible job. And also to people who, and I know there's a lot of vaccine anger right now, vaccine mandates, but I can only shudder to think what would have happened in Strathaven had the outbreaks occurred there in the days before the vaccine, because I'm convinced that because everybody's boosted there, the effects were minimal, and thank God things are going to get back to normal. And speaking of vaccines, I was at I attended the opening or the launch of the maternal health facility near Sunday that we're helping. And I was so happy to be able to do that. And one of the things that one of the highlights for me was that there was a point in the celebrations, which like the whole town, well, it seemed like the whole town was there. There were a number of women and men who got their vaccinations, and they did it like in kind of like a public ceremony. And why this is such a big deal is that I was looking afterwards, 4.36%, according to Johns Hopkins, 4.36% of people in Uganda are fully vaccinated, 4.3%. And when you start to think about that, and the reason is that they just don't have access to it. And we're so lucky here that we do. And so those two things are happy bucks for me.
Perfect. Thanks. Lloyd, I see you next. I see you, Renee.
Yeah. Sad $50 actually. Sad $56 actually. So my friend and partner in work, James Bulbrook, passed away last week. He was a really great guy. He was a really dear friend, and his passing was sudden and really sad at 56. But he was also a real public servant and somebody who believed in the power of community. So I'm going to donate $56 to the club in his memory.
Thanks, Lloyd. Pauline?
I'm very happy. We have a new addition to our family. He's came in at £7. We've called him Hamish, and he cleans like a wee bugger, and he's making my life so easy. And he's a Roomba 4-1 plus.
I saw that the other day. Renee, you have a happy buck?
Yes, I definitely have a happy buck. I just got over COVID, and let me tell you, it was quite something. I give $20 for this. The only thing with COVID, what I found, my experience, it still affects me, even though I'm back on my feet and not really big symptoms anymore, but very, very tired. So that will take a while, according to the doctor. But I'm glad that I'm back on, and we take it from here and go upwards.
Perfect. Glad to hear you're feeling better. Okay. That's all for, oh, yeah, Don.
I'm just on your Roomba, Pauline. We have friends of ours that have one, and unfortunately for them, it was running, and one of their dogs had diarrhea, and the Roomba ran over and flicked feces on the wall, on their artwork. Anyway, it was a disaster. So just a note to self: keep the turds off the floor, and you'll be fine.
Well, it's funny you say that, Don, because as I was reading the instructions, I thought, that's a funny sort of warning. And it says, it will not clean up pets' mess.
Oh, it moves it around pretty good, apparently, though.
Okay, a couple of quick announcements. The Valentine's dinner. Keep promoting the Valentine's dinner. I know we've got a number of people signed up, but we could use more. Joe, you wanted to say something quick? Are you still there? Oh, there you are. Sorry.
Yeah, very quickly. Yeah, Martin Franssen will be speaking at the conference, the district conference. If you haven't looked into it, it's going to be a great event. I got myself involved in it, and I'm having a good time doing it. I'm booking speakers, and Marty's going to be one of them, talking about what he talked about today to a wider audience. And a couple of things I'll run through very quickly. I'll run through some of the other people we have coming. I'm trying for the president of General Motors, not having much luck yet. We do have Dr. Peter Juni. I don't know if people know him, Juni. He is the scientific director of Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table. They're the people who have been advising the provincial government through this whole thing. The folks from WASRAG, the Rotary Clean Water, including Steve Rutledge, are going to be talking. And we also have Kimberly Black, who I'm sure some of you remember, the woman who was beaten pretty badly and is now was basically abandoned, given up for gone, and she is now a resilience, speaks about resilience. She was great. Dawn Lovell Harvard, who is an Indigenous activist, third generation. We have our friend Todd Simcover, who was this autism self-advocate who spoke with us last summer, who was wonderful. And lastly, we have a woman, her name Farida Nexad. She's an Afghan journalist who fled the Taliban takeover with her daughter. She's now living here. She's actually a journalist in residence at Carleton. And she's going to be interviewed by her friend Joanne McDonald, who was the former VP of CTV News. So anyway, that's who we have. There's going to be some great entertainment. The Sentimentalists, who were on Penn and Teller and actually fooled them. They're a Toronto duo who do mentalist stuff, and some other entertainment and the usual chance to see your fellow Rotarians from the district. Hopefully we'll be all in person by then. It's in Oshawa at the Marriott, Courtyard Marriott in Oshawa. And there's a few people who've been working pretty hard on it. And shout out to Ron Dick, who's chairing the whole thing along with Trish and his wife, Karen.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Jason.
It's May 13 to 15. Perfect. May 13 to 15. Register now.
Jason.
Yeah.
A quote, please.
So it's all about the power of being positive. A great attitude becomes a great day, which becomes a great month, which becomes a great year, which becomes a great life. That's from Mandy Hale.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so next week our meeting is Tuesday morning again. And if there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, everybody have a great day and keep it positive.